Commission meeting of June 13th, 2023. And ask for roll call, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Ottinger,
Present.
Commissioner Burns,
Here.
and Commissioner Fritz is absent today. Vice Chair Fritz is absent today. Chair Fernandez.
Here.
Thank you very much. We have a quorum, and Commissioner Kelly is not here.
All right, thank you. So we're going to switch to comments from the public on items that are not on tonight's agenda. If you have anyone that would like to make comment, please come up to the podium.
There are agendas at the back of the room if you'd like.
Okay, go ahead and close public comment for items not on the agenda and ask for any statements of conflict of interest. Okay. Just for note, I had surgery a couple of weeks ago, and I'm here to have a quorum. So may have to rearrange some of the agenda items so we're not here that long, and I can make it through the whole meeting. So I'm going to move approval of minutes to the next meeting, if that's okay with you guys. Okay. And we'll go ahead and move on with item 6A, Peacetown Conditional Use Permit.
Thank you. So tonight's item is a temporary use permit for the Peacetown Concert Series. The events will be held Wednesdays starting June 14th, running to August 16th, starting at 4:30 p.m. and ending at 8:30 p.m. The permit includes stages at the Crooked Goat, Wood Floor Foundry Building, and the Community Market Lawn. There are some changes to this year's permit, however, and those include the request to add after hours locations at the Hot Monk, Third Pig, and Gravenstein Grill. This also includes the closure of McKinley Street to allow craft vendors and an additional School of Rock stage on McKinley Street. Both these permits still do require a parking monitor to ensure that private parking lots are not overtaken during this event series. I do want to note that as the first scheduled event is for tomorrow evening, the current permit would not meet the minimum deadline to allow an appeal. And with that, the planning director has the authority to extend a temporary use permit for a one-time 6-month period. And we'll be doing so for last year's permit, which is 2022-038. Those conditions of approval will be subject to tomorrow evening's event. And for the conditions of approval for that permit, they are included in the staff report. So those have some conditions in there that include not allowing McKinley Street craft vendors and the additions of Hot Monk, Third Pig, and Gravenstein Grill for just this event tomorrow. The rest of the permit and those events will be subject to this year's permit, which is 2023-040. And those will be subject to the events, as I stated, starting on June 21st. So with that, I don't have anything else for the staff report. If the commission has any questions,
Okay.
I'm here to answer them.
Yeah. So at this point, any commissioners have questions from staff? Can you turn the mics up a little bit? Yeah, maybe bring it a little closer. Okay. So questions of staff? Okay. I just have my own question. So there was a recommendation to not close McKinley. And could you kind of just address that just for public information as to how that came about or why that recommendation is being made?
Okay, so that is related to the Peacetown folks submitted their permit end of May. We got them to the very first hearing we could with appropriate public notice for a public hearing. That's tonight. There's a 7-day appeal period. So they have an event scheduled tomorrow night. So the only way that that could be approved was by my extending last year's event and all of the conditions of approval, because I don't have the authority to modify those conditions of approval. So tomorrow's event will need to adhere to last year's rules, which include not closing McKinley Street.
Right. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
And
And then for the future events, they are requesting the closure. And so that is
Yeah.
on your agenda tonight.
okay, yeah, just want to recommend. Okay. All right. So are the presenters here, applicants that want to say anything? If you want to go ahead and come up to the podium, please.
I'm Jim Corbett, and I'm here with Elizabeth Smith, our executive director of Peastown. Everything's going to be the same this year for this first week because we're going to be extension. But what we're looking to do in the second week is to have a little is to have a vendor's market there with local crafts and stuff. So we're excited about that. The important part of that, and I think not only for the crafts, but also as a safety measure, we want to close off McKinley Street to traffic during our 5 to 8 show, basically. So because Elizabeth has the family village and the kids are running around there, we always get a big crowd near the School of Rock stage, which is right there, that corner of McKinley where Acre Coffee is and the playground. So just for safety reasons, we're really looking, that's the big reason we want to close the street for this the event. And we've dodged bullets in the past and there have been some close calls. So we definitely don't want any injuries and stuff. So that's why we're kind of presenting that. And I think the vendors add to the quality of what we're doing. And yeah, so.
Yeah, and I think we'll add that we are not, once we found that out, that we might not be able to shut down the street. We planned for tomorrow to not include street closure. So it would go into effect next week if you approve it.
And then as far as you're aware of all the stipulations for noise ordinance and so forth, I know it's kind of difficult to kind of put on some community events and try to stay within that, but just kind of want to reiterate that. Hopefully we can all make it work. Yeah.
Well, really appreciate the city kind of helping us out and stepping up because I think this is our 12th year and there is a little twinkling in the air about going back to eyes for our last three things of this season. So we may be doing that and you'll be the first to know.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's been a great community event. So hopefully we can keep it going. Yeah. Okay. And before you sit down, does any commissioners have questions of the applicants? Nope. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. At this point, I will open up for public comment on this item. So if anyone wishing to make a public comment on this item, please go ahead and go up to the podium.
Right. And so we do have, people both virtual and in the room. And so the way we do questions or public comments at this time is we'll take one person from the room, and then if there's someone from the public on the Zoom meeting, we'll just go back and forth. So if you do have a public comment and you're here tonight, if you could go and line up behind the podium, that would be great. And we'll get this going.
Hi, my name is Susie Balomo, and I'm the owner of Il Fusti, the oil and vinegar store on McKinley Street. And my concern is what time McKinley Street is proposed to close to traffic, because it really would be difficult on my business because we are between the Oyster Restaurant and Endless Energy Crystals. And people that walk by when there's booths and crafts people set up during Head West, it really hurts our business. It really takes away from our business because nobody looks up. Head West is usually our worst weekend. And I'm the sole owner and the sole person that runs the business. So I can't have a booth down there and be in two places at once. So anytime there's a street closure or an event, our business does suffer. So my concern is the closure of McKinley Street and why it has to be that part of McKinley Street and not down further where the theaters are. And I know my neighbor, Sean at Endless Energy Crystals feels like-minded. So we're just wondering about what time it would close, when the streets would be closed. And, we're just worried about how it would affect our business as Head West does. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go ahead and address that after everybody's done making comments.
Okay, so if there is anyone virtually on the Zoom meeting who would like to comment, if you could either raise your virtual hand or note in the, and I'll check and make sure in the chat to me. If you'd like to make a public comment, that would be great. Okay, I do see Roxanne, Chair Fernandez.
Okay, go ahead, Roxanne.
Hi, thank you for having this meeting. And I just wanted to reiterate that we're really appreciative of the support that we've received from the city with regard to our major concern, which is parking, of course. And the shout out that we got in the paperwork saying that they would gladly be providing parking monitors. I did notice that the approval of the TUP from last year specifically noted Rialto Cinema's parking lot. And in this year's, it just says private lots. And I can't speak for the landlord because she has an interest for Johnson Street, which isn't a parking lot at all. It's a legal street, not having parking there. But I just want to make sure that when people talk about the private parking versus the public parking for Rialto Cinemas, that the private parking lot is private. And we just need to know and make sure that the parking monitors are great when they're there, but that they will be there to help us. So that's my only comment. I thank you for giving me some time to talk about this, and I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments from within the room on this item? Okay. Are there any other public comments from anyone attending virtually? And again, you can actually at this point go ahead and unmute yourself if you are virtual. I do see Jennifer from the Barlow.
Good. Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I just wanted to specifically address Roxanne's concern and let her know that I have pre-scheduled the parking monitors for the remaining Wednesdays for all of the Peacetown events for the Rialto parking lot. So I just wanted to make that comment known, or that knowledge known.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Okay, and I do not see any other public comments. John, actually, we did receive a couple prior to the meeting. If you could review those.
Yes, we did receive a couple public comments, and they're included within the staff report.
Okay. Thank you for that. So at this point, I will close the public comment. And if you want to address the hours for closing of the street at the
Yeah, I think we'll have the applicant address the hour question from a member of the public, if you don't mind, Jim.
So the question was what will be the time frame for the McKinley Street closure? And Jennifer, I don't know, since you're at the Barlow and coordinating, who's Elizabeth? Oh, someone needs to be, yeah. And I'm sorry, because this is being recorded. Can you go to the mic and answer? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Last year, I believe we shut it down at 3 o'clock. Is that correct, Jennifer?
Yes, that's correct.
And I think we were hoping to close it just a little bit earlier because what was happening is people would leave their cars and then we're trying to set up the kids area. And so there would still be cars there and people leaving with children playing. And I don't know how that changes the element with us closing McKinley, because we were only doing Pink Lady Lane, if I'm saying that road correctly. So I think the earliest or the latest would be 3 o'clock to give us ample time to set up.
Okay, and Elizabeth, is are the vendors, when do they start? I know your concerts start at 5.
We've been telling them 3:30. And the concerts actually start at 4:30.
And then the street will stay closed until what time?
The shows go until 7:30, so probably 8. Right, Jim? What do you think?
So, yeah, we would open the street basically 7:45.
7:45. Okay.
Right after the show.
Yeah, because you guys have the concert series, the time wise listed as 4:30 to 8:30. So you could go
We put
4 to
that,
8:30. 4:30 to 8:30. I mean, you don't have to obviously go that long, but just so that you know, that's the time.
thank you.
Yeah.
We added that extra time to give us time to clean up,
Okay.
like the children's area, it takes time and
Okay.
getting everything picked up.
Great.
Yeah.
Any follow-up questions?
I don't have a question, but.
Here,
I
wait,
mean-
go ahead.
Oh, yeah, now no one can hear me.
Okay.
It is a legitimate concern for the vendors. Usually you would think parades and events like bring business to your retail establishment, but it actually is quite the opposite. People are so focused on what's going on that they don't go to the stores. So I think we're asking a lot from the vendors in the Barlow to continually pay the high rent that they're paying and take a hit for Go West and for Peacetown. There's just a lot of events. So I'm wondering if there's some kind of win-win situation we can look at. I did hear from the woman who spoke tonight that she's a sole proprietor and works there, so it's unrealistic for her to have a booth. My first thought is, could they have a free booth and be able to take advantage of maybe getting some new clientele and have a way to bring money in. But I do think that is something that should be sorted out. And it's obviously not just Peacetown, but the more that the Barlow is bringing on these events, it really does hurt the retailers there. So I think we have to be mindful of that and kind of see a way that we can forge forward and be inclusive, because they're not going to walk up there. Even if you guys didn't have the vendors down there, it's just historically proven that people don't shop when there's another event on a site. So that would be my concern.
One of the things I think.
And Jim, I'm sorry, but you really need to go to the mic. It's fine.
Okay, you can go to the.
You just need to go to the microphone
Yeah,
so
just go to
people
the-
can hear you.
Well, what is the question that you're?
I mean, just,
to address?
it's more of a, can we hash this out and find some type of win-win situation where the merchants who are paying this exorbitant rent to be in the Barlow are also being able to, have sales during these events. So I don't know if it is, letting them have a free booth and maybe making it, I mean, I don't know the solution because, being, a sole proprietor, not having a team member, maybe somebody from Peacetown could offer to do a community booth for them and like sell their wares, some type of solution where we can make sure that there's not so much revenue loss for them so often. Because Wednesday night isn't, I don't know, I'm not in the Barlow, but usually the biggest retail night, but the weekends where Go West are probably where you.
So one thing I hope, and I'm really glad I got to talk to you yesterday, because what we had hoped for when we did the Peacetown at the Barlow was that it would bring lots of people in, which it does. And that would help all the shop owners, but it clearly hasn't in your case, so we have a bunch more people there, but they, they don't want to walk around with some vinegar and oil on their hand while they're going around partying. So I'm really appreciating that. And we want to, you talked about where we put our vendors and maybe if we put them at a different location a little farther up the street, like you suggested, that may help mitigate just your place being blocked out because you got actually a good location there. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, just so you understand, it's not necessarily that they don't want to carry around the vinegar. It's that traditionally on-site events deter from the regular retailers there because it splits their finances, it splits their attention. They came for that. It just is, you know, like the Apple Blossom Parade is like one of the worst days for everybody down because they're all there. You would think all those people are on the streets and they don't walk into the stores. They leave. They came to see the parade. They go to, you know, so is there a situation where you guys can look at, you know, that can be inclusive of the merchants? You know, that's, you know, just something you guys can hash out, but a concern that I think is a reasonable request.
And I think that's been on our radar for sure to make this collaborative and make this work for everyone, Peacetown, the Barlow, the vendors, the storefronts. You know, we want this to work for us to be able to continue to do the space there. I think our idea to close the street primarily, as Jim said, was a safety standpoint, because we do have so many different stages and there have been just so many close calls. People think it's a festival. So they're walking in the middle of the street. People are drinking, they're driving.
Oh,
they're
I totally
hustling.
get it.
So
I totally,
I think
I'm with
that
you.
was
I'm
like,
with you. I'm with
sure,
you. Yeah,
that was
I
the
agree.
primary focus. Well, they're not just going to close the street for that reason. We need to fill the street. So that's, I think, where that we were conceptualized that idea of a farmer's market and the artists and craft vendors. Certainly, I think having, you know, a booth out there and what that looks like. And we want this to work. So I think that's a conversation we could have. And I also understand and respect in her case, that's not always so easy when you're in business for yourself and you're the sole employer, you know, or employee and employer. So I think that's a conversation we're very open to having. And so maybe between the Barlow and us, and maybe we could get together with some of these businesses and listen to them on how we can make this collaborative. We're open to it. Definitely.
I would definitely be happy to help you guys with that.
Thank you.
Some ideas and suggestions.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Okay, let's see, any further comments, questions from Commissioner?
Yes, I'll go ahead and ask or make a comment.
Sure.
I am excited about the possibility of people coming to Ives Park because I hear that a lot from people that they really wish it were back at Ives. So having some of those would be great. Carrie, there were some concerns previously about closing McKinley Street because of health and safety and getting emergency vehicles in. Is that not an issue during this time frame?
So there are requirements that there be folks stationed who can open up McKinley Street during that time in case there is an emergency. And so that is one of the conditions of approval for the closure.
Okay, so that sounds.
And that's the same as for Head West and when they do those.
All right, with no further questions, looking for a motion.
And just of note,
Yeah.
I know the Rialto did have a comment about it being the parking monitor being specific to Rialto. I do know we changed it to private lots because if there are issues at other private lots, those need to be addressed as well. But I don't know if the commission wanted to consider, you know, being specific that is shall include the Rialto lot, since that
Okay.
is certainly was the concern last year.
Okay, and where do you think we can add that in with the?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
then?
go ahead.
Last year, when we heard from the Rialto and there were the issues. Last year, we heard from the Rialto and there were the issues with some of the security guards were like sleeping and not doing their job and all that. Did that get better? Because I never heard after that. Did it get better with the parking and the Rialto and?
We did not hear complaints later on in the
Okay.
season, but I guess that's actually where I would, maybe the chair could ask the Rialto representative, Roxanne, if you wanted to hear her comments on that.
Yeah, Roxanne, did you hear that comment? You have any feedback on that?
I did. Yes, and Kari was really responsive, as was the Barlow. I think it all got ironed out pretty much. And, we're hoping that that would be a continued situation. Some of the parking monitors are really great. Some of them were not, but it all seemed in the end to work out. And we were happy about that. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, and I know there's also discussion about signage, making it clear what's the private lot, because next door or not, I mean, next to those spaces is a public lot.
Right, and the signage, the city has installed additional signage right at that break, and the Rialto has on the other side. So it's better signed now at this point where that split is between the two.
Okay. So if you have the item where we could add specifically about where would that be?
And John, I'm going to ask for this help because I found it in last year's version, but not in this year's. So it's condition number 4 for this year. Last year, what we had is, let's see. What page of the document is that? Oh, okay. Sorry, I found it. A professional security firm shall be present and monitor parking areas to ensure that public does not park in private lots, including the Rialto lot for the event is probably what I would suggest.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
So I'll move that we approve Exhibit B with this change to item 4 regarding the parking.
Excuse me?
Okay, I will second that. Any further discussion? All right, call for the vote.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Odger,
Yes.
Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
and Chair Fernandez.
Aye.
And that motion passes 3-0 with 1 absent.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good luck. Hope everything works out for you guys. Okay, moving on to item 6B, Woodstone Corners Planned Community Zoning Amendment and Use Permit.
All right, thank you, Chair. So this item is for a zoning text amendment for the planning commission to recommend the zoning amendment or use text amendment to the use permit for the planned community at 1171 Gravenstein Highway South. This would allow for ground floor units to be converted from commercial to residential spaces. This amendment would satisfy the use permit requirement to allow 100% residential within a commercially zoned parcel. This amendment would also be applicable through the conditions of approval to all units within the Woodstone Corners complex. This amendment also does not include any exterior changes to the building and would only include minor interior tenant improvements to convert those spaces into residential spaces. The site provides 17 parking spaces and also includes 7 on-street parking stalls, which would overpark the project if it were all to convert to residentially zoned or residential spaces on the ground floor. With that, I don't have anything else to include in the staff report. We did not receive any public comments for this item, and I would be happy to answer any questions. If not, we can pass it on to the applicant. Any questions of staff? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I had asked Carrie earlier if,
Yeah, we'll get there to that. Thank you.
I was just wondering whether it's okay to ask for ask that the residents, even of all these other buildings, do not have short-term rentals in the new residential units that are created. Is that something that we should be looking into?
Can you repeat that question?
So the question is, would it be appropriate to consider not allowing short-term rentals in these new residential units that could be created? So vacation rentals. And I did ask the applicant, and so he can answer that. He did say that would indicate that would not be an issue for them.
So that is something that we could consider.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And that would be, if they did have that, it would be non-owner occupied or
Yes, it would be considered an unhosted
unhosted.
rental anyway, which would require a conditional use permit approved by the planning commission. But because this, the development requires a conditional use permit, you can place reasonable and related conditions onto the project as part of your approval tonight.
Thank you. Okay, no questions? All right, so I just asked for the applicants. Anyone wants to make any comments, please come up to the podium. Just for the applicants, yeah. Yes, we'll get to public comments. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Greg Dable, Commissioners. I own the property, just one of the 6 units at Woodstone. So I'm not representing the other 5, but I can tell you that the Woodstone Corners is an HOA, and we had a meeting and they voted unanimously to support what we're bringing to you this evening. It was the staff that suggested the amendment would apply to all units. So I initially started just to convert or ask for conversion of mine. But all of the owners are open to that. I can't speak to whether they're all open to a vacation rental. That wasn't on my radar at all. It's just that there's so much office space in town. On Craigslist this afternoon, I saw 28, offices for rent the same size as mine. And it took me months and months to re-rent when I had a turnover. And I know you need housing. So the idea was just to be able to have the option of converting it to a residence, long-term residence, not a VBR or a VRBO, whatever you call them. So it just made a lot of sense for it fit the master plan, and I'm not going to convert it for a year because the lease that I have now doesn't expire for a year, but the process here is long, so I thought I'd get a head start. But I'm open to any questions.
Okay, I have one as far as the integration of living unit and possible office unit. I'm familiar with the sites, but not as far as how's the noise from one area to the other. I know it's usually just daytime, right? That's if there's any business there would be conducted, and it's
they're like
office.
tax accountants and 8 to 5 offices.
Yeah.
Tree Pro is one of the tree service, but it's their office space. All of the upstairs units are residential already. They're completely separate from the downstairs unit. Each owner owns up and down, up and down, up and down. And they have different addresses, different utilities, separate everything, separate entrances. They're already separated. So the conversion of a downstairs unit would be pretty easy, very easy. I mean, I've got access underneath to put plumbing and wiring in for a kitchen. There's already bathrooms, so it kind of makes sense to me. That's why I'm looking at that as an option in the future.
Okay.
I have one, Patrick Slater, architect for the project. I have one additional comment just related to what the planning director noted about changes to the building. And it would largely be tenant improvement, interior only, with the small caveat of a potential of a change of a window in order to meet code egress requirements for a residence. I haven't surveyed all the buildings precisely, but where the bedrooms would logically lay out, I know in the application address, it's possible to meet the code without any exterior changes, but it would be installing a window with a lower sill. or something like that. A very, very modest change to the outside, potentially, if these would go on. So I think that's the only reason that anything on the exterior would need to change at all.
Okay. And I assume that once the changes are made, that the intent is not to be able to convert them back to commercial someday in the future. I mean, it's hard to imagine that we would need that, but is it, because if you're adding kitchens and so forth, does that mean that then it just becomes permanently?
I believe that the way that the staff report is written, and you know
Go
what to
for
do
it.
if I'm wrong, is that if an owner wanted to go back to commercial use, that would continue to be an allowed use the way that this is written. So what it's doing is opening up the option to become either residential or commercial. And in this climate, I can't believe that any property owner there, once converted to residential, would ever want to reconvert it to office space. But it is in a commercial zone. It's in a logically office space type of location within the city. So I think that would be reasonable.
Okay.
Right, and I can confirm that is the intent of the zoning amendment, that it
Yeah.
could be flexible. It could be either, because it's, the current use is suitable.
Yeah.
The residential use is suitable. And I can also note that the exterior, thank you, Patrick, for bringing that up. Our intent and was to make sure that like patios and interior, additional exterior space wasn't then captured and rearranged. That would potentially impact the commercial space and things like that.
Great. Any other questions?
I guess I do have a question. I'm sorry, I'm not sure I heard this right, but did you say the upstairs is currently being rented out to residents and the downstairs is commercial?
There
So,
are 6 parcels. I
Okay.
own one.
okay,
Each one is a residential upstairs and small office
Okay.
downstairs.
perfect.
Separate entrances, separate addresses already.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There is a real issue with housing in Sebastopol, but office space you can't, get rid of at this moment. So my question is, for what we really lack here is moderate to low income housing. So I don't know if you can share this, but I'm wondering how large the units are there now and what the rent is and what your thought is on market value or renting.
I rent the upstairs for 1,600.
And
It's
it's
a 2-bedroom. as well.
2-bedroom. Okay.
So I could probably rent the downstairs for about that as well. And I have a couple other properties in town that I rent residential as well, in that range, 1,800 tops, depending on location and amenities.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. And
Yeah.
may have some other additional follow-up questions, but at this point, I'm going to go ahead and bring it back and open up for public comment.
All right, and so any public comment? It looks like we have someone from the room, so please go to the mic.
Thanks. I'm Dana O'Gorman. I also own one of the units, and I just wanted to mirror, if we can get approval, it would be fabulous. When we purchased, it was obviously vacant, and we rented the apartment immediately and had multiple applications, and it took about 8 months for us to rent the downstairs. So with the housing needs the way they are, I'm just in full support if we get approval. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have not received any public comments outside of this meeting, and I don't see anyone online who wants to comment.
Okay, so go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to commission for any discussion or further questions.
I just, to make sure I understood, there's 6 different owners, is that correct? Six, so this isn't necessarily every owner is wanting to do this, but okay. But the operating use would be that all of them could potentially, if they. want
That's
to.
the way the staff report is
Okay.
written. And yes, it is 6 different parcels in 3 different buildings. And it was approved as a planned unit development of PUD, and so you have three buildings, and so there's two parcels within each building. Each parcel is a downstairs and an upstairs. And each of the six, as I understand it, have different owners. The applicant owns one.
Gotcha. But this would be for everybody, all 6 different owners to have the ability to do this, or would they have to all come individually?
So the staff report is written, it was proposed as one
That's what I just
address.
read in the
Yes,
staff
and then the
report.
staff report in the conditions would allow the other owners the ability to do the same conversion if they wanted to, without having to go through the same process
Okay,
again.
that's
So
what I
it's just kind of streamlining the process, so it's not as difficult for them to go through as well.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. We're always talking about creating additional living spaces and trying to use low-hanging fruit, so to speak. And this is one of those ideas that I think deserves support and a way to be able to convert something pretty quickly. So, and still have it, integrated with that. So I'm definitely in favor of that, and I would motion for approval.
Just one bit of discussion.
Yes. Oh, wait, we have a second first before discussion. Motion, I made motion to approve, and we need a second.
Okay, well, I'll second it.
Okay, and now we can
And
open for
then-
discussion. Yes.
Great.
Sorry, I thought.
So
Kathy-
Carrie, would it be a given that they couldn't rent it as a short-term rental, or do we need to put that within this document?
I mean, it would just have to go by the rules of whatever are in place now, right?
Correct. So for multifamily, which this would be considered, because then you'd have potential for one residential and one residential. And actually, this would apply to the upper floor residentials as well. It would be considered a non-hosted rental, which would require a conditional use permit from the planning commission.
Okay.
So it is possible they would have to go through that process. And as you all know, it's highly unlikely to either get staff support or commission approval for such an unhosted rental in the current climate.
Yeah. And, I would rather not have that as a stipulation, because we already have that. And they can always come and we can make that decision at the time. Who knows when that's asked, maybe it does make sense. Yeah.
Because it's one parcel and two residences, I wanted to make sure that the upstairs resident wasn't going to be considered a host. That's the only thing I wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, when we had our discussions on non-hosted rentals a while back, the commission interpreted, and we have been using that interpretation that multifamily, each unit needs to have a host within that unit for it to be considered a hosted rental. Otherwise, it's a non-hosted rental.
Yeah. Good question.
I'll make sure.
Yeah. Okay, we have motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote.
Okay, Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Commissioner Ottinger,
Yes.
and Chair Fernandez.
Aye.
Okay, so this motion passes. And what this is, just to be clear, this is a resolution, which is in the packet, which recommends that city council adopt this zoning amendment. They are the only folks who can do that. And so we will let you know when that is scheduled, but we do have it on the forward calendar. We can get that to you tomorrow when we've requested it to be on the agenda. It's basically, I think right after. It cannot be on the consent calendar because it requires the same public hearing at that level. And I believe it's the second meeting in July, just because they are going to be starting budget discussions, and then they do not have a meeting on July 4th for obvious reasons. So that would be the date that we've requested.
So maybe would it be more accurate it's not a motion necessarily for approval, it's just a recommendation to
To
city council
adopt the
to
resolution.
adopt the
Yeah,
resolution.
which is in itself a recommendation. to
Okay,
city
so
council,
do we
yes.
need to
So if you wanted to redo that motion.
Yeah, I
that's
think it might
great.
make sense to do that. Okay. So I will make a motion to,
Adopt the resolution recommending the city council approve the zoning text.
okay. And can we have a second?
We'll second that.
Okay. And I'll go ahead and
And
call
the
for it.
vote, Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Ottinger?
Yes.
Chair Fernandez?
Aye.
All right,
Great.
the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much for correcting my oversight.
I'm just curious for the other owners because the red tape through the city, since they don't need to go through the process with us if this passes, can they also have the same stipulation once it goes through city council, or would it be more beneficial for them to apply now so when it goes to city council, they're on the docket too?
So they will automatically be on the docket
Okay.
because the recommendation is that the zoning text amendment cover the full development. Yeah, yeah, and that's, I think your neighbors will probably thank you for being the guinea pig on this one, but we just felt like it made sense to, if it's appropriate for one at the site,
Yeah, okay.
then it's
Just wanted
appropriate
to
for
make
all.
sure that they don't have to go through more hoops.
Well, I appreciate the support from staff. You've been very encouraging.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to recommend item 7A be postponed for another meeting, which was the commission rules update resolution. That's okay with you and the commissioners, and move on to 7B.
Thank you, Commissioners and Chair Fernandez. And we do have Mario Landeras, our contract city engineer, here tonight, but I will kick us off with a brief staff report, and he is here to answer questions as well as myself. What is before you for this item is a determination for the proposed capital improvement plan, that the projects within the plan, so the projects that the city is proposing to do as part of its capital improvement funding for the year, are consistent with our general plan. And so this is a determination that we make every year around this time in June. And the reason is, under California state law, you cannot approve to fund a project that is, as a city, that is not consistent with your general plan. So it's a pretty easy kind of a thing. Many of the projects are very similar to last year. You know, they'll either be phases or they're carryovers, like the AmeriCorps project has been bid, that trail project, and the Ives Park Pathway, the first segment has been bid and will be under construction, but we're actually applying for a grant to do the other two segments of it. And so that is considered a capital improvement project. So what we presented you with is the draft capital improvement plan, which is going to be discussed by council starting next Tuesday. That's the big document with all the color pages listing all of the projects the city is proposing for this next year. And the staff report and again, would be adopting a resolution, finding that the projects are consistent with the general plan. And that includes the various findings from the general plan that staff has gone through and said, okay, well, these projects are consistent with, and let me actually just kind of go through like the circulation, the street projects, the sidewalk improvements. Those are consistent with the circulation element policies. The open space in terms of the spending on street trees and stormwater, the community facilities policies regarding maintaining city infrastructure. And we do have some projects regarding ADA accessibility upgrades. And then the housing element, we do have a couple of housing elements projects in there in terms of potentially applying for a grant to purchase existing housing units, deed restrict them and resell them. And then, and I think that's about it. And I believe we have one as well in terms of creating art in town. We have a couple of art projects in the capital improvement plan. So I'm not going to go over all the projects, but if you do have questions about any of them, again, Mario is here from GHD on the screen. And I am here. And so hopefully between the two of us, we can answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. And Mario, I don't know if you want to go ahead and make any comments at this point.
No, I think Carrie presented that very well. And as she mentioned, I am available on
various categories of the projects, should you have questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I guess open up any questions of staff at this point.
It's sort of like the rodeo you've done in the past 3 years. So, if there are actual project questions for projects that you might have questions about, we can take those as well, in addition to the general plan consistency.
Yeah, I think general plan consistency is pretty clear. It's just so confusing. I mean, during COVID, we were going to fund the improvement to the pathways in Ives Park from High Street to the children's area. And it still isn't done. Will it ever be done? That money is still sitting there waiting to do it, or have we lost that?
That money is there, and actually Mario has just gone through the process of putting that the segment 1, which is from the southwest corner to the pool building.
Mhm.
That has been bid, and I believe that bid has been awarded. Mario, can you talk to schedule on that for a little bit?
Yeah, certainly. Yes, that is correct. We did bid that first segment, and it was awarded to Piazza Construction. They have done some work recently in Sebastopol. And in fact, they are doing a much larger utility project this year. But yes, they have been awarded that. We're right now in the process of contract review, and expectation is that we will be issuing a notice to proceed probably within a week to 10 days. So that will be happening. Yes.
Right. And then for the segment 2 and 3, so the rest of it, I'm actually, and Mario's been helping as well, working with the grant writer that the city hired to submit a recreational trail grant application, which is due on Friday, I believe, of this week, which would fund 88% of the rest of the trail. So it would fund, I believe, the total cost for the estimated cost based on what we just opened, what we just bid, because that's about as accurate across as you can get is what people actually bid, is about 210,000. So the city's share for that would be about 25,200, I think is what it was. And then if we get the state grant, it would cover the rest of it. So we are applying for that. I do know that council members have comment about the state of that, as well as the planning commission. So everyone is aware of that. But obviously, if we can get additional funding, that helps maintain our funds. In the capital improvement plan, we are looking at the project costs for the AmeriCorps Trail and the Ives Park and some of the other that our park improvement fund, which is the development impact fees, would be close to zero at the end of this fiscal year. But our Measure M park fees, which is the sales tax, the county sales tax for parks, would be at a higher level. And the reason for doing that is because the Measure M is a lot more flexible. Like, for instance, this is, it can be used for maintenance, so that aren't eligible for a lot of grants where it's only for new construction. So fortunately for Ives Park, because it's replacement, they're actually both eligible for, they are eligible for grants. But just in terms of park funding, I do know we'll be getting development impact fees, and I've been projecting that out from like the Woodmark. When they finish their project, their fees will be due and things like that. So.
Thank you.
Obviously you can't repeat all that. I didn't hear anything. I got there was a grant for a path.
Yes, in Ives Park. So the first part of it is being constructed in a week or two. And then we're applying for a grant for the rest of it.
Okay.
Okay. We open up for public comment.
Absolutely. However, I do not see any members of the public. They were clearly all interested in items 1 and 2 tonight.
Okay, so just for the notes that we did open public comment and closing public comment.
And I can note for the record that we did not receive any comments outside of tonight's meeting.
So bring it back to commission, and you're looking just for resolution that it does meet general plan.
Yes, so this would be adopting the resolution we prepared for you, which does find that the capital improvement plan is consistent with the general plan.
Then I move
Okay.
that we adopt the resolution finding that the capital improvement plan for fiscal 2023 to 24 is consistent with the general plan. What it says
She's making
here.
a motion to approve for the capital improvement project.
Okay. I can second.
Okay,
Thank you, Commissioner Burns.
motion is second. No further discussion. Go ahead and call for the vote.
Okay, Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Commissioner Ottinger,
Yes,
and Chair Fernandez.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We have a unanimous approval for that, and Mario, I'll be able to get you that resolution signed tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to skip subcommittee updates, and if there's anything planning director's report, let's go to that.
Yeah, I do just have one item or a couple items. One is that the budget committee has completed their reviews. And so the city council will be starting budget discussions next Tuesday. They have also asked for the June 27th. I believe I emailed you, Chair Fernandez, about this, as they anticipate having to go on for that. And because we would not actually have a quorum for that meeting, and we don't have all of the items were kind of stacked tonight that we needed votes on. I am proposing that we cancel the 27th. The other, so I think that's it, but just knowing that those budget meetings are coming up if you are interested. The other news that I have is I did receive a resignation from Commissioner Kelly today. So we will be thanking for her for her service for many, many, many years. We will be recruiting soon for a new commissioner. So, but
Can I
that,
ask a question? It was my understanding that she held some seat where she didn't have to live in the city. Is that
No, that's
correct?
me.
actually, that's her seat.
Oh, that's, you. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, Linda does live within the city.
Yeah, she lives way on the other side of the street, right, from the city limits,
All the way across.
all the way across. Okay. So did you hear her saying that recommend canceling the June 27th meeting?
I knew that though.
Okay.
was the-
All right. Okay.
I did hear though that Commissioner Kelly resigned. So what does that mean for?
So what that means, just like anytime a commissioner's seat is up, is that we go through the recruitment and city council goes through the interview process to appoint a new commissioner. 4 people, Paul will be back from his vacation after June. But 3 people constitutes a quorum. So 4 does as well. And we will hopefully get a new seat, new commissioner seated soon, but that usually takes about 3 months between the advertisement, the council interviews and all of that.
And if I'm understanding this correctly, that person would finish out the term,
Correct.
which comes up in December, if I'm correct, because her and I are in the same
Thank you.
rotation.
That is helpful to know. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the new person would just finish out
Her term.
her term, which is up in December, but
Right.
then they could reapply.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
Correct. And
she's
often they do
resigning
if
in the
they're,
middle of the term. I
yeah,
got it.
yeah.
Okay.
So if it takes 2 or 3 months, I guess they're going to serve for 2 or 3 months, I guess, right? Before their term ends.
right. Yeah.
And then
So
they can
before
reapply.
the potential fall.
Okay.
So I just have a question of Carrie about this.
Yeah.
So it turns out that we need to have all 3 of us here present to have a quorum. Or,
You need 3. So we now have 4 commissioners.
uh-huh.
We do need to have a quorum present, which would still be 3. Yes.
Okay, that's-
It would still be
That's
3.
what I thought.
Yep.
And
In
I
person.
imagined myself being here alone with everyone else.
No,
I thought we all had.
it would still be
at least
3
of
at
us.
least 3 in
But
person.
even since I'm disabled, because I really can't hear anything you guys were saying.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
like,
so
okay,
sorry.
these things seems easy. I'm getting enough.
Right,
Like
right.
I can't be at home and be considered part of the quorum.
Not for the in-person quorum part, but you would be as a quorum of the total.
No,
So
but
like
this
if,
is-
like if Paul's here, then we have a full 4. It doesn't, you can still vote when you're, but they're
No, I realize
state
that.
law
I just
is
feel
that
bad
it's,
that it
yeah,
doesn't help the
it's
poor.
Yeah.
3 in person.
I'm just wondering if maybe we can. If
We checked on this, trust me.
That's the reason for not attending, if there's a way, because, you know, you can get headphones. Like if you have headphones for
I
this.
can't, I don't have it here.
Okay.
Yeah, so I,
So even with.
I don't, well,
Yeah.
here I have a hearing aid.
Got
I can I don't know
that
any. Yeah, it's a little more complicated. Well, we don't need to waste
Yeah,
time with
okay.
that now. I just, if
Yeah.
there becomes an issue with 3 people being here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I do want to appreciate Chair Fernandez, who came despite his being in mid-recovery, and Commissioner Burns as well for accommodating this. I do appreciate this.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh my God,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I was just concerned because I have a 102-year-old mother-in-law and she needs 24/7 care. And so we're going back and forth to Bend. And so, you know, I could vote if someone else were here at the
Right.
meeting.
Right, and so, yeah, I would say just if you have any, like, I know
As
you're not
soon
here
as-
on the
yeah.
27th, which is why when council asked for the day, I said, well, that seems fine.
Yeah. No problem.
We'll front load everything on this meeting, which we did.
Mhm.
And yeah, just if you do know that you're going to be remote,
I'll try to,
just let me know and we'll try
Yeah.
to coordinate best we can.
I'll do what I can to plan around those meetings. I think I will be here for the next one, but maybe not at the end of the month. So-
Okay, and I can also work with Chair Fernandez. We do know when it's just a discussion item versus when we'll need a vote. So that we
Sure.
can, you know, we've actually, John and I forecasted out through August or September at this point. So we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it might be useful, since we're down to 4, to maybe send out just an email reminder to all the commissioners that, hey, here's the dates for the meetings, and if there's something you can't make, please let us know. And so we're all kind of hip time. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Made it.
You did.
Oh,
You had
man.
time to spare. You could sit for another hour. No.